So sometimes it's really hard to believe that we are where we are today when you consider where we came from. But then again, we manifested it all. So we thank the Creator for His blessing and also for besties in business. Yo, yo, sit back, relax, and let yourself go with simply Naima and alter ego. These are trying times, so relax your mind. If you need some help, then drop us a line. We create a space where we can have good conversation, family, culture, business, race relations, giving birth to kings and queens. Manifesting wealth and things. 2020 came and tried to give us mad action with no satisfaction, and then we all distracted, but still gotta hold our own. Doing big boss shit, rockin' Nina Simone, a superstar in this compilation. Came to this universe to give you niggas motivation, but you still sleep, you niggas always on a vacation. But he's a creep, and that's the real life translation. You feel me?
I don't think they feel you, yo. We gon' get this bread and feed them till they full. Yup, we gon' get this bread and plant the seeds that really grow. We do with taboo and not for likes and for show. Expand your network, your connections will grow. Thanking the Creator from where all our blessings flow. We are innovators and creators, multifaceted, talented, beautiful queens. Most of all, confident and conquering dreams. Besties, gang gang. Hello and welcome again to another episode of the Besties Podcast. Today we are talking about a sensitive topic in our community. We're going to be talking about mental health. Simply Naima is not with us today. She may hop on later. So just keep her in your prayers. And then Crystal's going to introduce our guests and we'll get started.
Okay, our first guest is Miss Leslie Gibson, so Wellness Curator, having collected invaluable lessons and tools towards wholeness along her way. As she learns how to become whole, she desires to teach, inspire, and motivate people in their healing processes. As she becomes aware, she wants to share with those who want wholeness also. She is a mother, a teacher, a minister, an intellectual with good girlfriend sensibilities, a lover of shoes, antiques, gospel, jazz, classic R&B, and house music. Her hope is that her family, friends, and those who she connects with will take the wholeness journey with her. Our second guest is Miss Dr. Tina Scott. She's an accomplished psychotherapist, coach, speaker, and trainer who started her career in the health industry. Through hard work, determination, and faith, she became a senior healthcare executive and prevailed in several organizations over her 20 years. Dr. Tina has extensive experience running strategic operations from multiple high-volume healthcare delivery departments. She has proven her ability to deliver measurable improvement outcomes while enhancing program successes. Dr. Tina has also been consistent with implementing methods that promote a culture of service excellence.
Welcome to the show, ladies.
Hello, how are you? Hi, everybody.
So thank you for agreeing to be on the show. I've been talking about it all week that mental health in our community is really a taboo topic. We don't really talk about it as much as I feel like we should. So before we dive into that, I just, want to ask you guys to talk a little bit about yourself and your business and how you got started. Anybody can go. Leslie, Dr. Tina.
Okay. Okay. I'll go first.
Okay.
So my name is L Danielle Leslie, and I am the Wholeness Curator. And what I aspire to be is I'm a mental health advocate, but also a critical partner and friend in people's mental health process, their healing process. My focus is on the solutions and not necessarily the problem. We talk a lot about the traumas and the actual circumstances in which we're broken, but my goal is to push people towards wholeness, towards healing that will make them whole. And when I say whole, it's where you're able to see yourself living a healed life, if that makes sense. You know, not just saying we're healed, but we actually live like we've been healed. So that's my definition of wholeness. And also to be a resource for people about the mental health supports that are in our communities. And that is the focus of the work that I do. I much of what I do includes biblical wisdom, but it's for anybody. It's for anybody because people need all sorts of perspectives in order to really to get to the place where they can find what is going to be their process, what are going to be their strategies to move forward in wholeness. So I come from a biblical perspective, but I'm also very practical. So that is my approach to supporting my community in mental health.
Okay.
I actually got into the field mainly by accident, if that makes sense. When I graduated from high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I had to do something because my family would have had a lot of negative things to say about me if I did not find a path. I'm hearing an echo. If I didn't find a path or something to do. But when I say it was an accident, my ultimate goal was to be the CEO of a hospital, and then a shift happened. And when that shift happened and I became unemployed, I had to really think about some things. I went to school for counseling, but I did it on the side, like going to school for hair or braiding or something like that. It was my side hustle. And when things started to come together for me, I opened up my own private practice on an unemployment check. That's after being fired. I'm saying my story fast, but it was just God had a purpose and a plan for me. And even though I wanted to go do something else, which he allowed me that time, he was like, have the time, you won't be able to do this, but I need you to come back and help my people. So my main thing that I do with people and organizations is I help them with breaking through the different barriers that's in their life. And then now that we're in this big racial tension and all these different things, that's one of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis, just helping people break down their barriers.
Okay. Are you listening like on another phone? Because I hear an echo too.
I hear. I can't. It's a distraction. I don't know where it's coming from. I'm not listening to it on another phone or anything.
Me either.
Can you hear an echo when I talk?
I heard it when Crystal was speaking, and I think I heard it a little bit when Miss Danielle was speaking.
Okay, let's try to push through because I can always edit this part out for the replay. So I was watching Taraji Henson. She has a show on mental health. She just recently started. And something that struck a nerve with me was they were talking about PTSD. But it was in regards to relationships, abusive relationships and trauma, which I never really thought about like that. I never thought that, usually you hear PTSD, you think of the military, somebody in the military, they have PTSD from the trauma from being at war. Like, how do you help people cope with that? Like somebody like myself, a domestic abuse survivor, and then you not even realizing that you may even need the help, that you're suffering. Like, how do you reach out to those people who don't realize that they need the help, and how do you help them cope with triggers and things like that just to get through life?
So when you talk about PTSD, back in the day, everyone used to refer to it as the shell shock, like when our vets would get injured and they would come back and they would be triggered by different things. And when we talk about PTSD and how we help people, number one, people gotta want to get help. People think that sometimes we're out there just throwing people in a van and say we're gonna help you. One of the first things is acknowledging that you need help and then allowing us to do the things that we do well. But when we talk about PTSD, it's a trigger that people have with certain events, whether it's trauma, and like you said, in relationships, if they were being abused, when they go into a new relationship, if someone even do certain things that make them feel that it's happening, they kind of tense up. Good, that noise stopped. It tensed up. And and us as therapists, and I'll speak for myself, you know, we start going back in history and looking at a timeline and really start looking at that particular place that individual became fragmented, right? And started unraveling. And then at that point where we see where the unraveling starts, then we start actually, I'm just going to say, start implementing our prescription, our mental wellness to help them put things together. So it's not a one and done solution for everyone. People present different things, and based off of what they present with, we develop our treatment plan, and we just start doing what we do well.
L Danielle, did you want to comment?
I would what Dr. Tina said is very true in terms of observing. Even if you're observing your family members, yourself, you know, even if we talk about Black people or I'll say Black people as a culture, much of what we experience is our responses out of like a place of PTSD. Sometimes people say things like, well, you know, they say it's like, this is just how I am. But based on several things that have happened to them in life, they have these trauma responses to things. And so we know that even the word being triggered these days is like a buzzword. Oh, I'm triggered. Oh, I'm triggered. You know, that was a word that was at one point only used maybe among people that had like certain diagnoses. But in those moments where people are having trauma responses just in life because of something that they've experienced, you know, we're seeing a lot of that. And people have only thought of trauma in terms of, like you said, the war, or only trauma in terms of maybe seeing someone killed, you know, but definitely abuse, definitely injustice, certainly, you know, the different types of abuse. It opens up those places and people where it changes the way, you know, and Dr. Tina could even speak more to that if she wants to, you know, I'm not telling right what to do, but you know, where your brain just responds, the body responds to trauma. Our bodies hold trauma, right? So living in this world, there's so many things that we're constantly responding to. A lot of times we don't even know that that's not quote unquote normal. It's become our normal. We say, well, that's just how I am, you know, quick tempered, these things, or you respond a certain way, even in children. Right. And so starting to become more aware, just starting to become more aware and more sensitive, and even compassionate to, like, other people may not know it, but you may recognize it in them. And then, like she said, like Dr. Tina said, until people want help, there's not a lot you can do, but we can be more compassionate towards how we respond to people, especially when you've seen a pattern. When you've seen a pattern in how people respond. For some people, like their first response to everything is anger, out of a place of anger. They gonna get it together. They, you know, we know how it is. Well, let's talk about Black women, because we're here, Black women on the choir, right? We get the title of the angry Black woman, right? Or people don't want to engage with us or interact with us because they always think the response is going to be from a place of anger or agitation. And that may or may not be true, but that's just not by default. There are some specific things that happen that have kind of created these personas. I'm not saying it's okay, but we can start to respond with more compassionate understanding for why we are, the way we are sometimes.
And, you know, when you talk about PTSD, it shows up differently, like lack of trust, lack of closeness, intimacy, not being able to make those connections when we're talking about being in a relationship with others. And here it is. We most people desire to be in a relationship, and they work very hard. And then when they get that girl, that dude that they like, now that I'm here, I don't even know if I can really get close to them. Because I'm afraid that this may happen. And listen, many want to turn it off because they desire to have that closeness with someone. But when we're talking about that, it's just extreme signs of different emotional trauma that has happened that is triggering them. And it's making them hard to make the connections that they desire to make. And a lot of us, depending on the neighborhoods that we live in, outside of the relationship, we hear the gunshots, right? It signifies something. So we could be somewhere, we could be in a supermarket and we can hear something go pop, pop, pop. And the first thing we may do is just duck because it's a trigger for us that our safety is at risk, right? So that's just, I use that analogy just to show you how common it is, because I know if I hear certain things, because I grew up in the inner city, when I hear certain things, I'm going for shelter because their environment has created that for us.
And speaking about the environment, in Philly, that young man who was shot by the police, they said he had some type of mental health issues, and his mother called the police to help with his mental health issue. They end up shooting him and killing him. Do you have any suggestions, or like how can we combat that? Like how can we make sure that we're safe while still trying to get help in a emergency situation like that? I'm sure she didn't intend for that to happen. She just wanted help for her son.
You know, it's a lot of sides to that story, and I'm just going to go with the popular side right now. But there's a lot of sides to that, and I didn't watch the clip that many times for a lot of reasons, because it was hurtful, painful, along with other things. But there's two sides to that. But again, I'm going to go with what's popular right here and right now. But at the end of the day, our police, along with other professionals, need to be educated on how to handle the mentally ill person, because the mentally ill person, if you're not educated, can look like something else. And when that person looks like something else, you're going to respond to them in that way. And that's why we probably had this situation that took place. But education is important, and taking it serious, right? Because oftentimes our mentally ill individuals are laughed at. And then you got something like this that happens, and now we want to fix it. So when we talk about the disparities of care and all these different things, that young man, the police is not the only person at fault at this, because from my understanding, we have a broken system, and the young man did not get the help that he needed, which allowed him to still be out and about. From my understanding, I don't know, I might be misquoting something, but if what I know is true, he needed some care before then. And the bad thing about it is when people place the call to get someone 302, it's sometimes a major delay and things like this happen. So education is so important. Training is so important. And then the right tactics of dealing with people such as this.
That particular situation, like Dr. Tina said, is so multi-layered. I think often about the people who have never received a diagnosis, right? Have never received a diagnosis on paper that they have necessarily been treated for. They are out here. They're in our families. They're our cousins, our uncles. Everybody had an Uncle Pete that stayed in the back room and your mom took care of them, right? Because, there were some things, that didn't allow them to be in the community safely. And so, like in this particular story where his family was trying to get him some help and there was a huge delay, according to, the way the story's been reported, a huge delay in him getting what he needed. Many of the healthcare systems, agencies, hospitals are backed up right now with COVID. And I know this firsthand. I'm just going to say that right now with COVID, you see huge numbers of children who are displaced because one, their families are not taking them back home because they're not equipped to handle their mental health needs. And then there aren't the places on the outside, the residential places to send them to. Right. So you have people who are housed in hospitals, mental health hospitals right now, because everybody's trying to figure out how to respond to this crisis. And then you look at the community, you have people who are, I don't want to say stuck, but they have to be with their families right now, and families who are not equipped to respond to their mental health needs, whether or not they will not consistently follow their treatment plan with medicine, or whatever the situation may be. And so we see it played out in our communities. Again, I go back to trying to have more compassion. Our law enforcement, they definitely need to lead with more compassion. Their approach is militarized. They approach everything with a gun. They approach everything with, they're going to, the way that they handle the situation. But that's not necessarily it. They definitely need training. But I keep saying that word compassion because that's like the one thing that, people seem to be limited. Of course, I'm saying be safe,
Mm-hmm.
but just approach it with some understanding. You understand what I'm saying? You approach it with some understanding. Keep
Right.
yourself safe, but approach it with some understanding. Sometimes we are meeting people in our communities. They have issues,
Mm-hmm.
right? And say you get into a road rage incident. You don't know who that other person is on the other side of that, in that car,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so everything is heightened. So everybody's responding at this heightened level. And I'm just going to say, I believe that's how so much of the violence and the things that we see in our community happen, because we're all at this heightened level of response. And for some people, they're acting out of a place that is they're ill, and we're not recognizing that. And isn't equipped to recognize it, but it does take more education. It definitely takes more education and compassion.
And here we are, and Leslie, thank you for that. I hope that's it. And thank you for that. But here's another thing. We all got issues, right? Some of us know that we need to get help, and some of us try to figure it out. And some of our greatest leaders, Dr. Martin Luther King, right? When you read near the end of his time here, he struggled with depression. Look at all the racial injustice that he saw, all the things that we're seeing now, right? Depression is so real, but us as a people and people, period, we feel like we can fix it ourselves, right? And then we just keep unraveling until, we get to a point that we may need to be 302. And it's because of the huge stigma that's on mental health. Like, I'm crazy if I get help.
Right.
I should have figured that thing out on my own. Won't you man up? It's just the different narratives that may have been communicated to us that we feel like we need to either woman up or man up or whatever the thing may be. But so many is walking around just trying to figure it out on their own, and they're suffering in silence and really just bringing this to a head. And I like the fact that Taraji and so many other people, Black Men Hill, so many organizations are trying to break the silence. And if it takes for a star to do what an everyday person has been trying to do for so long to make an impact, so be it, right? But you have so many people that have been doing this every day, even like y'all platform, just to educate and get things out there. But it takes for somebody that's in the limelight to help break the silence. So if that's what has to happen, then let it happen. But you got so many people that's been doing this stuff for so long, and people just been looking at them like, whatever. But then when you get somebody like Taraji and other people to come through and say some things, now everybody's on it. And I'm glad for it, because here it is. This is one thing that if it takes for that to happen, then we need for it to happen, because it's going to save lives. You know how many people that's probably on the bridge right now get ready to jump because of the way things are going on in their life, because they didn't feel that they can go get help. So what they're going to do is take a permanent solution to a temporary problem and then jump, because they just want the pain. They just want the pain to go away, and they want a certain level of hope. And what our role is to give them some of that, right? At any means necessary, whether it's them getting intense inpatient, outpatient, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, we got to really break the stigma. And I love the fact that many people are taking the platform, and I pray that they continue to do it after COVID.
That's
Yeah,
good.
and what you said
That's good.
was so important. Like, I just remember, you know, growing up, that's just how it was. Like, you couldn't really be depressed. You couldn't be sad. You didn't have a reason to be sad. Get up, do the dishes, do what you got to do. Mom, if you listen, I'm not taking a dig at you because I know she watched the show. But, you didn't really have time to be depressed. And even now, I oftentimes feel like if I'm depressed, like, I can't get anything done. Like, I don't even have time to be sad and depressed because I have to do this. I have to do this. I have the kids. I have this. And I don't know if it's just a Black woman thing, but I feel like we have this superwoman type of syndrome where we feel like we have to do it all and we can't take time and we can't get help. And even for myself, it's hard. I think it's hard trying to find help. It's not as easy as just, go to therapy. Go ahead. You had a comment?
I did. When Dr. Tina brought up depression, it's something interesting that a lot of people don't realize. And so if we talk about educating, everybody thinks that depression always looks like withdrawn, don't want to get out of bed, don't want to eat. And a lot of times it does not look like that in everybody. I'll take a lot of our young Black men, for instance. A lot of them act out depression more than they internalized depression. That's why you see a lot of the behaviors that you see in our communities, especially in terms of violence, right? But then, Khadija, you just mentioned you just push through. A lot of us have been conditioned to push through because we've told ourselves that narrative that we don't have time to take care of ourselves. There's too many people that depend on us. We have to get this done, X, Y, Z done. And many times that's often the thing that is keeping us in that place, that you won't take them, or you're so busy that you won't allow yourself to feel your way through your emotions because you feel that they'll overtake you. But when you are able to connect with the therapist and learn the steps to even finding that type of support, you can't do anything but get better in learning how to manage and then overcome. And for some people, it may be something they live with their whole life. For some people, it could be there are different types of depression. There's so much to learn and understand. It could be seasonal depression when it gets dark and fall. Maybe for some people, that's what they're going through. It could be disease-related depression. Maybe that's what they're going through. But ignoring it is certainly not, going to make it go away. It may be grief-related or episodes, something that happens that triggers that. But people aren't taking enough time to figure out what's really going on with them and who they can connect with that can help them work their way through it so that they can have some sort of productive and better perspective on life. It doesn't get better overnight. Medicate. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, a lot of people have stigma, us and medication. We don't, when you talk about going to the doctor, period, or a professional, period, for anything that has to do with Black people, we always dragging our feet. We drag our feet. I'll be okay. In the meantime, we'll be okay, but we're self-medicating. We're ignoring, self-medicating by drinking, smoking, eating, sexing, anything to take your attention off of the feeling, the circumstances, right? And then all that, a lot of times it just compounds what's happening. And that's in a very basic way of looking at it. I'm not even using any, fancy context for that, but that's the reality. And we've got to break that cycle. It only breaks when you break it. It only breaks when you connect with someone like Dr. Tina or like myself. I try to help people understand the process of finding a therapist. A lot of times it starts with, I hope I'm not being all over the place. A lot of times it starts with like going to your medical doctor. I know I've dealt in my past with depression and anxiety. And early this year, I found myself going back into a bout of it. And I knew I felt different in my body. I went to the doctor and was checked. I had severe anemia. And it's a lot of people walking around with physical health conditions that are contributing to their mental state. And they're just, pushing it back. Oh, I'll be okay. I'll push through. There are answers to a lot of this, and there are ways to access it and people who are willing to help. But you have to take the step to break it and get out of that mindset of the stigma of it. Because we're all going through something. Mm-hmm. We all need some support, some kind of way.
And one thing, I speak nationally as a mental health first aid trainer, where I train people on understanding and recognizing the signs, right? And I think many just don't recognize the signs. And here it is. I struggle with depression, and that's why I'm good at helping my clients with depression and anxiety. I remember as a child, I would always feel like I was having a heart attack, and I'm like, yo, look, I'm having a heart attack. And I used to watch Fred Sanford. He was like, I'm having a big one, right? And I was like, yo, I'm having a big one. And no one would really understand what I was saying. But it took for me to really go through my training and said I was having panic attacks. Like when I used to get anxiety so bad, I was ready to like literally hit the floor, like pass out. And it still happens. Like if my anxiety and if I let my brain, like my thoughts take over, next thing you know, I'm like thinking, and people was like, we couldn't even tell. I'm on autopilot. I could just say some things, but inside of me, it could be a whole nother party going on, right? Sweating and everything else, right? But it's funny because, again, people will look at you as a person of strength. And I'm still strong with my anxiety and my depression with me, right? But I make sure I manage it. I make sure I have different tools that I use, different interventions, and I see someone, right? But here it is, me as a therapist. I remember having a therapist say to me, you, and you're a therapist and a Christian, right? So we got to be careful how people speak into our lives, right? Because people will say stuff, and whoever's listening, we gotta be careful of what we say to increase the stigma. Because someone said that to me, but I wasn't claiming it. I'm like, look, I don't care how many tools I got, I can't use one right about now, right? My depression is all over the place, and you are giving me anxiety, so I need to disconnect, right? So it's important that we identify that, because people that claim they want to help us often are the people that are inducing the very symptoms that we're trying to get away from. So we have to get educated, and not just educated. When we know better, we should do better, and not know better and then torment the heck out of somebody, if that makes sense. Like help them, not feel like we got one. Oh, well, she got depression. I don't care. Say what you need to say. I know I'm moving into a healing space, and we got to get people in that mindset, because it's easy for someone to feel like I'm not good enough. I'm weak. And when you look at Facebook, everybody killing it on Facebook, right? Everybody living their best life on Facebook. And here you are trying to put the pieces together. You're like, now I'm inadequate. So it's so many different things. And the messages we say to ourselves, and then the messages that other people that say to us as well.
So you think earlier, Danielle, you were saying that you like to focus on the solution. So you're saying that the solution would be more education. Like, how do we break the stigma though? Like, how do you, or do you have any idea how we could do that? Is it more platforms like this of people just talking about it? Like, what can we do to really make a change? This is all that I know how to do. We've been talking about this for a while, and I really wish my cousin, we had a death in our family. I really wish she was here, because this is really, near and dear to her heart. But, we want to actually make a change or try to make a dent in a huge problem. Like, what other solutions besides education, and how do you get that education out to the people?
By doing exactly what you're doing. It certainly starts with education. It starts with living room conversations, talking to your friends. Crystal and I, this is something we talk about this kind of stuff all the time and pick each other apart. And she says I'm her person. We kind of had the relationship, like if we ever stopped being friends, we probably had to put a hit on each other, because it's like it's too much stuff in the in the well. But it starts with because we always want to say something we do. We always want to say, well, they need to stop. Who is they? They is us. They is me, you, and your cousin. They is you and your girlfriend. They is you and your husband or your partner, right? They is you and how you respond even to your children. Some of us have even have felt the need to parent differently than we were parented. It starts when you decide that you're going to change. You can't beat your kids for everything, even though you're highly frustrated and you told them 20 times. Changing your parenting. How often do you talk to them? Some people even have chosen to take physical discipline off the table, and they talk their children through discipline and teaching them. It starts with deciding that you're going to change the cycle. You're going to break it. You're going to change the narrative. I also am someone who has to suffer with depression and anxiety. Dr. Tina says she used to pass. I used to pass out, throw up, and pass out. My mother could not tell me anything exciting. She was like, "Don't tell them." And no dig to my mom, but at the time she was not thinking that I was anxious, had anxiety issues. She just thought she had a special child and she'll grow out of it. And I didn't necessarily grow out of it. It just started to show up differently. I stopped vomiting and passing out, and it was more internal. But my point is, when I became aware of it, I started to do something about it. And we're not responsible for what has happened to us, but we're responsible for doing something about it. Healing is each person's personal responsibility. You can't be 40 years old still talking about what your parents did, didn't do, and who did what to you. It's your responsibility to change that. And when it's funny when you see people do that, that's what to yourself, you're like, you are 40 years old. Nobody cares what happened to you. It's not so much that nobody cares what happened when you're 11, but that's when you were 11. So at this point, how are you going to change it? It starts with education, personal responsibility, personal responsibility to seek out. That's one of the things that I do in terms of wanting to offer people strategies. People are like, well, how do you connect with a therapist? Because for so long we've seen therapists or psychiatrists made to be these one only certain people go see those type of people, or I'm not paying them to tell them all my business. I'll just talk to my girlfriends, or I'll just talk to my mans, They are not always equipped to hold that space for you. They're not always equipped to hold their mirror up to you. They're not always equipped to make you be accountable, right? So that's another thing. Personal responsibility, invest in yourself. Seeking a therapist or having that type of mental health support, that is a personal investment in your personal development and moving forward. How do we break that? We break it by stop thinking that what's abnormal in our lives is normal, because you don't like it anyway. A lot of us don't really like how we are or how we show up. That's just kind of like, right? So we make those excuses for ourselves. So decide, this is not the person. I know this is not the person that I am. I want to seek more. I want to heal. I want to become whole. So I think that's how you do it. And education has to happen. It's multidimensional. It's personal. It's community. It's global. So the more we talk, the better it will get. The better it will get. It's systems. It's law enforcement. It's medical. The medical field. It's the school education systems. The way that our school systems are responding to the needs of our children, it's all of those pieces.
Okay. Dr. Tina, did you want to comment?
Sure. Definitely agree with everything that was just said. In addition to that, we need to make sure we hold our politicians and our leaders to making sure there's equality in treatment. Because there's a lot of disparities when we're talking about our mental health and our mental wellness, even just period as a whole, and just holding them accountable. And also too, when we see how the media stigmatizes mental health, we need to call them on it, because the media has so much power and they get away with so much that we need to call them on the carpet when they start doing certain things that is showing the stigmatization, if that makes sense. In addition to that, when we talk about education and heightening the awareness, not only should we educate people about it, but we need to make sure we educate ourselves, right? Because if you notice, there's always some change in the whole what one thing is called and certain things that's happening, but we just need to make sure that we keep educating ourselves and educating others and just holding people accountable, because at the end of the day, people want to get better, but they just need to know how. And we need to make sure that I was on a Zoom earlier when they talked about resources. Yeah, there's resources, but when I call, am I going to get through? Don't just give me a number, give me a real solution. Don't give me, and I don't want to shout out no names, but don't give me a place to go, and then when I go, it's going to be like 4 months before I can get in. I could have killed myself by then, or somebody else, right? So it's important that we really address the real issues and hold our politicians accountable. And I think our politicians want to hear from us and not just go to them and fix this problem, but go to them with some real solutions so this can be behind us and not just something just for us to just go out there and talk about for a moment and pass the ball. No, we're going to pass it, but we still running alongside of you to help you fix it because it takes a village, right? So it's important that even though we pass that ball to our politicians, hey, what can we do to help? Because they're going to probably need people to make phone calls and all that. You know, the budget ain't strong enough for that. So we just make sure we make ourselves available so we can be a vessel to help correct this problem. Because this problem is getting bigger and bigger. These health insurance, guess what they cut? Mental health. Most people can't even use their mental health benefits because they got high deductibles. $5,000, $10,000. They like, yo, I'm just going to just try to do some St. John warts and just call it a day. I don't know what to do, but I know I can't afford that. So we just got to make sure there's some equalities here. And if you got to figure out medicine or care and feed my children, what you going to do? You're going to feed your children, right? And you know, people say she crazy, but she crazy feeding her children, right? Because she can't get help, she can't get care. So she's trying to do, and I'm saying she, but whoever is trying to do what they need to do so they can keep living this thing called life. And it's just so many challenges. We need to remove those barriers, those barricades, because believe it or not, this ain't new. This ain't. It's just a bunch of new names. We got new names like racial injustice. They ain't new. Right. We just got new names. If you go back and look at it, that's why we had so many people walking and marching. It's just a new name. You know what I mean? Because really some population, some people want it to go away. It can go away if you just do right. But when you keep going wrong, it's going to keep impacting us. And that's why we got all this stuff building up and we doing what we do.
Right. So what I want to do now is, this is a heavy topic and we could be on here for 2 hours, 3 hours talking about it. Crystal, do you have some questions you want to ask? And then we usually do like a lightning round of like 4 or 5 questions that we ask. But I just want to ask some questions more about, just you guys and your business before we wrap up.
No, I don't have any questions. The ladies were awesome. They touched on everything I thought about and heard about. I realized with my depression, I got to stop getting married.
Stop getting married.
Yeah, it's a long story. Me and my therapist have talked about it, so we know what my trigger is and what Crystal does. And when Leslie talked about the male population, they tend to act out. I said, well, I must be a male because I act out in mine. I was the big purchase queen. I would go into a lot and be like, yeah, I want that car, and the next morning I would wake up and be like, oh my God, I got to give this car back. I was drunk. Or I go and tear down the mall in every store and wake up with all these bags and take them right on back with the receipt and be like, I apologize. They didn't want it. So
I never return anything to the store. Maybe that's like a trauma response too. Like I keep it all. If I can't fit it, I just keep it just because.
My bank account wouldn't let me. The electric bill wouldn't let me keep it.
Right.
Well, so 2 questions. What's the best compliment you ever received? And if you had a billboard, what would it say?
Wow. Best compliment I ever received. I think wow, that's a good question. Best compliment I ever received. You can go, Dr. Tina. I'm trying to think.
I think for me, the one that just came off the top of my head is when my clients tell me it's because of you that I'm still here. And sometimes in this work, we don't always see what we do because clients will come and then they'll just stop coming. And you're like, well, dag, did I like what happened? Like, and they're thriving and doing well. And when I heard some of my clients, when they give me the feedback, like it's because of you that I'm still here, it really makes me sit back and think about like, it ain't in vain, right? And we talk about depositing seeds, and sometimes we may not see the seeds grow, But that within itself, it gives me hope, because sometimes you just don't see your work, because you see people's face, their affect may not change, but on the inside, it's an agitation that's going on that's making them do what? Choose to live. So when I hear that, it does me, it makes me feel well, because it's another day that somebody chose to live because of me. And here it is. And I don't mean to say that in a selfish way. It's because of the gift that God put in me to be able to birth it out to do what He had me to do.
And you know, it's funny that you said that. I just made a post about my mom, right? So I told you I'm a domestic abuse survivor. And I was in that marriage for almost 10 years. And I only, like, I stayed alive for my kids. I didn't want my kids to be without me. And then Crystal commented, like, me too, girl. Like, it's so many of us who went through that period where it was like, I can't leave them without me. All they have is me. And my mom was the one. And if you're listening, Mom, I shouted you out then, but I'm going to say it again. Like, she literally came and was like, no, that's it. Get your stuff. I left with a basket full of dirty clothes, and me and my kids were on like a twin bed, and we left. But she, like, you know, snatched me out of that situation. I didn't see, you know, my way out. So there are people, you, Dr. Tina, my mom, like, you guys are superheroes, because sometimes, you know, it's that one person or that one situation or that, you know, one comment that keeps you here. Because I literally did not see myself coming out of that alive. I just didn't.
And that's what I need, somebody just to, you know, it's just, can somebody just care for me? Can somebody just come help me? Can somebody, like, take my cape off and be my superwoman, be my Superman just for a second?
A second.
Can somebody just stop walking past me? Because what happens is we fall into our puddle of tears, right? And when we're laying in our puddle of tears, whether we are honest or not, we are hoping that somebody will come and save us. What happens is we're laying there, and instead of being saved, you know what so many people do? They splash that water right in our face, right? And I tell my clients, don't just stay there. Stand up, because that water ain't that deep. It's just because you got your face buried in it. But so many people just want somebody, because they tired. They tired of working hard every day. They tired of doing everything for everybody else. They're tired of everybody pulling on them in all different directions. And when they ask somebody for a cup of water, they say they're too busy, and it devastates them. So even though we're supposed to give and not worry about what we get back, we human. Yo, if I'm in front of me, I expect you to say thank you.
Absolutely.
If I open the door for you, say thank you. Else the next time somebody had it on his Facebook, they held the door for this lady and she walked through. He pulled her back, put her on the other side, and let the door slammed in her face, right? And I know we may not be able to do that all the time, but sometimes we just want a little bit of appreciation, right? Just a little bit. Just say thank you. Just say thank. If you can't say to you, just do something. Wow. Nod your head, do something. Versus us feeling like, yo, is it all in vain? So definitely somebody caring is huge.
You thought of your best compliment yet? What was it?
I guess it would be similar, is that I've been a teacher for 25 years, and now I work with kids who are receiving emergency crisis services. And it's when they look for me, you know, when they're like, oh, you weren't here, or they know for the day I'm the one person they might hold that space for them to talk through or work through something. And that I give really good hugs. And people say they just feel like it's going to be okay. You know, Crystal, be quiet. Hush your mouth. Because she get ready to say something. So be quiet. I feel it. But yes. And your other question was, if you had a billboard for your life.
Right.
If I had a billboard for my life, guess what? I do have a little mini billboard.
Okay.
I have a little mini billboard, everybody. I just released a book. It's called From Healing to Wholeness, More Than Healed. And it's about my personal journey of overcoming being stuck in the healing process. Sometimes you get, when you're going through, I realized that I needed to be healed, but I got disillusioned right? Sometimes because we go through the cycles of the healing. I thought I was good. Here it comes again, right? So we get stuck or we just stop. So how to push through those places. And so I talk about some of my personal story, some biblical wisdom, and some practical tips about how to keep pushing forward in
And how can
healing.
they get the book? Where can they find it at?
People can go to the website, thewholenesscurator.com, and click buy now to take you to PayPal, and you just you just go ahead and purchase. So if anybody purchases, I'll say this, if anybody purchased this book tonight, you have until 11 p.m. and you mention the business building besties, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned business building besties, you will get free shipping.
Okay. Y'all better grab that book. Dr. Tina, what's your billboard going to say?
So I'm thinking about what's on my billboard now. That's right on 69th Avenue. That it pretty much targets people. Are you going through a breakthrough? Just talking about emotions that actually hit the people, so they can want to heal.
About your life though, like if it was a billboard about you and your life, what you've been through.
I'm going to switch right to it.
Okay.
One, it talks about like the breakup and the breakthrough, because it's like a mirror of me.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that I feel like I have went through in my life. So my billboard, if it was just me by myself, will reflect the same thing, because here it is. My billboard would just offer some type of hope for even myself,
Mm-hmm.
like just a place that you can just release and let go. So here it is, healing, break free, push. It would be a whole lot of things, a positive push to help me and help somebody else. And here it is. And I say this because I feel like when I touch somebody else, it touches me. Because most of the time, what I'm touching people with is the very thing that I'm going through. So I have a line, it's called Positive Expression. And here, the shirts and the apparel that you wear, it's really not for the person just reading it. It is, but it said you're going to be all right. Don't quit, because you never know the mindset of an individual. Everyone looks good on the outside, because we can get MAC, we can have the banging lip gloss, we can have everything that's rocking, the best hairstyle, whatever it is. But on the inside, we're crumbling. So my billboard will reflect something that will actually send a positive message to the person reading it, as well as myself. And it will be laced around hope, like that push, just to keep going, because that's important to me. Because again, it's a gospel song that's out that said I almost let go. And that song, when I heard it, I just broke, because it said I almost let go. I just felt like I couldn't take life anymore. My problems had me down, depression had me bound, right? I almost let go. And I probably jacked up some of the words, but at the end of the day, I know what it feels like to let go. And God's magnificent hand just came right underneath me with his grace and mercy, and he held me tight. So it's just so important that whatever it is a reminder of me of that hold that he had on me, and that hold that I need to make sure I extend to others.
And did you say you had apparel? You said you have.
So
how can you find that?
It's you can go right online. It's Positive Expressions, and there's a bunch of different things that you can actually purchase. Actually, I'm sharing it with you guys like first, because I'm actually going to announce it when we say Happy New Year. But a few people have already been there and looked at it and checked it out. And I also have a few books on Amazon. I have a breakup recovery coloring book, a mindfulness coloring book, and a juice therapy coloring book. And my latest release is a therapy notebook. And the therapy notebook is for anybody in therapy. And this notebook is designed page by page with encouraging quotes for you, as well as guided structure for your therapy session. Because here it is. I don't know if any of you ever went to a lecture or a sermon, and it'd be awesome. And then when you go to tell somebody about it, you was like, it was the bomb, but I can't remember what you talked about, right? It was so good. Girl, you gotta go get the tape or the CD, right? So it allows you to write key things like, what was my therapeutic goals? What was the interventions? What were the tools? Because here it is, you are the author of this book. And this book is going to help you through this thing called life. And you'll have tools that your therapist shared with you. You don't have to come to me. You can go to anybody. And you can start with one therapist and go to another therapist. It's to help you record things that you can use so you can keep going and being, and how everybody say, I'm living my best life. It's like, all right, when I'm feeling down, what did my therapist share with me in my session? She said, you know what? Stop having that negative self-talk. That was one thing I forgot about that. Let me stop talking negative to myself and replace that negative talk with something positive. We forget when we're in the trenches. And I do this all day, every day. I forget sometimes, oh my God, I'm talking negative to myself. Let me rewrite the narrative. So that's on Amazon.
Okay. And I was going to wrap up, but I have to ask this last question. You guys, you talk to so many people, you listen to so many people's trauma. It's like, how do you cope with taking all that in? Does that affect you in any kind of way, listening to problem after problem? And like, how do you cope with that?
I am an unapologetic self-care advocate for myself first. I take my breaks, my naps, my baths, my showers, not just self-care, pampering outside, luscious skin, but soul care, like really taking inventory of where I am, learning how to set limits for myself in terms of helping people. Prayer, talking to God and sitting and waiting for a response, asking Him to give me instruction, and friends, family, having those personal connections. But yes, I am a huge advocate. I encourage everybody to find your self-care routine, what works for you, what's going to add to. And when I say that, I mean things that are going to add health and strength without causing more sorrow, without causing more problems. If you understand, because people like their maybe their beverages or whatever, but sometimes people can get excessive, and I'm not putting judgment on this, but sometimes there are things that we do, that we say, or taking care of ourselves, that can then cause more issues in the long run. So I'm just saying, to be cognizant of what's really helping you to bring you that peace, that joy, that restoration. So I encourage everybody to do that, self and soul care.
Okay.
Listen, I know what to do, but I don't always do it. I am one that runs myself to the ground. Do you hear me? So I know that I'm supposed to do all the awesome things that she just mentioned, but I'm not always good with that, right? But I formed a group called the Clinician Think Tank, and when we meet, I have a great support system. And they often say, "Yo, you look like worn down," and I'm like, "Do I?" And then they tell me what they see, right? And I'm like, "Ooh." It's like, you probably need to like take some time to yourself. So sometimes, even though I may feel that I do need to do that, but having good people around me to remind me to take care of myself is so important and so helpful. So that's one of the things that I have to work through as far as managing my own self-care. Like, I could talk to everybody and tell them all about it. I'll get my nails done and all that stuff done. But right when I'm getting my nails, I'm like, look, can you hurry up? Because I got somewhere to go. I got to go back and see this client, that client, or while I'm in the nailery, I'm talking. So I know that I need to do better with that. But when I do take care of myself, I do silly. I'm silly by nature, right? And I'm trying not to be so silly while I'm talking to y'all, but I dance, I sing, and none of them I do well. But I dance, I sing, I line dance. I'm the person that be stepping on people's feet, but I'm just doing what I need to do. So when I don't do the self-care like that, like certain things, like when I think about like shut stuff down in between my clients, I may just throw Mary J. Blige on, and I'll just start just like I may be moving faster than the music, but whatever it is, it's my release. And I listen to music because music is my therapy. Music tops everything. I have playlists that's just ready. Me and God playlists, like when I'm starting to feel the blues and I need to pick me up, and when I just need to dance to get that energy flowing so I can deal with the next bunch of clients that I have to do. But I try to do that, and then I watch what I eat. I try to eat right, because I know if I fuel my body, I'll be able to run. but it's still some things that I do need to do better. And hopefully by the time 2021 comes, if I don't remember, I got enough alerts in my phone and on my laptop to say, look, just breathe. And you know how you wear your watch, it tell you to breathe. I'm like, shucks, I must not be breathing. So I'll be trying to do some mindfulness. So I need reminders, because when I worked in the hospital and I had to do 1,000 things at one time, and now I'm just having to sit with a client in a room, I'm used to managing a lot of things at one time, and it's just so different. But I still feel like I got to do 1,000 things. So I need to learn how to just slow down and just, relax a little bit more. So I ain't got it down. I got to take some chapters out your book, because I'm still trying to figure it out.
And a question from the audience: did you ever go to Sharon Baptist Church?
I did, and that's like my home. I'm still, that's my stomping grounds. My husband is a pastor, so we left because he's pastor in his church, but we still go over and do things on their marriage enrichment ministry and so much other things.
Okay. All right. So this was an awesome conversation. I'm so glad that you ladies joined us today. For anybody that's listening, you can find us on Facebook under Besties Building Brands. You can also find the podcast, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, iTunes, Google, Spreaker. We're all over the place, so check us out. If you're interested in being on the show, you can find us at bestiesinbiz.com. And if there aren't any more questions, I thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. And I'll be contacting you both because I need some help. I'm gonna take that first step and go ahead and see what this counseling and therapy session is about.
Amen.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.